Hi, I'm Kerry Parks. This is a video about our neighborhood swallow-tailed kites nesting season of 2022, when we discovered we had kites nesting in our trees visible from our veranda. Hope you enjoy it. Are you familiar with swallow-tailed kites? They're lovely birds. If I had to come back as a bird, I'd want to be a swallow-tailed kite. Just watch them fly. In August through September, these birds fly from their seasonal nests in the southeastern U.S. to their wintering grounds in Brazil, and then back again in December through January. Here are some satellite tracks of the routes they take. Through the Clusar Bird Club, Ruth learned of the Avian Research and Conservation Institute. In addition to the satellite tracks, this organization logs the seasonal nest activity of swallow-tailed kites with help from volunteer observers and some nest cams placed by their tree-climbing scientists. On the 20th of March of 2022, I was practicing tennis on the neighborhood courts. I heard kites calling, and it attracted my attention. I saw one land in the Australian pines across the street from the courts. Hey, there's a nest there. When I got home, I told Ruth about the nest, and we went back with bins and camera to see what we could learn. Once we knew there was a nest, we took more notice of the kite activity. Then later that same day, we spotted a nest in this tree along a creek. This nest was visible from our veranda. We continued to closely monitor the creek nest while keeping an eye on the tennis court nest. We could just barely see the tennis court nest from the veranda, and only when the wind blew some branches out of our line of sight. Yeah, I think maybe the other one's going to bring pieces. Around the 25th of March, a bird started sitting on the creek nest 24/7, which we took to mean there were eggs. We kept filming the nest, hoping we would see something change to indicate the eggs had hatched. There was always a parent on the nest, regardless of the weather. Here is a pretty brisk wind from the south. Given the structure of the nest, branches slightly obscuring our view and distracting the autofocus of the camera, we could not see into the nest, but only things sticking above the nest proper. We didn't see any glimpse of chicks until the 22nd of April, when we managed to get a glimpse of one little white bird head in the creek nest. At least one egg had hatched. On the 25th of April, we captured 2 whiteheads in the creek nest at the same time. 2 eggs had hatched. 2 is all swallowtail kites typically lay at a time, but they can lay 3. On April 28th, we got video of a single white chick head in the tennis court nest, followed by a food drop. As the days passed, we could see more and more of the chicks in the creek nest. Food drops were more frequent as the chicks grew. Most of the time, a bird would visit the nest only long enough to hand off the food to the adult on duty. However, once in a while we would see the parent bringing food land on the nest, and the parent who had been on the nest would quickly depart. It wasn't clear if there was an agreement about the shift change or if it was a unilateral decision. It sure happened quickly most times. Luckily, the camera was rolling when a squirrel came to check out the nest. We didn't see it very often, but we were only recording an hour or two per day. After a nice sunrise on May 1st, there was a strong thunderstorm with heavy rain. One parent hunkered down on the nest with the chicks underneath. The wind blew and the trees swayed, but the nest stayed secure. The day ended with it raining, so the birds could not dry out until the sun came up the next morning. Here are a few kites drying on a snag from yesterday's rain, not far from the creek nest. You can't soar very well if you're heavy with water. Notice how long the wing and tail feathers are on the kites. These feathers are quite long compared to most birds. On May 2nd, the camera caught a few crows landing near the creek nest in the same tree. The parent kite kept sitting on the nest and they flew away after about 3 minutes. Here's a food drop at the tennis court nest. A good look at the prey with this clip.
Wow, there's a food drop, almost missed it. What's going on right now? Oh, she's got another big thing in. The delivery boy just dove off. Yeah, might be a little wiggly at the beginning.
On the 7th of May, we saw one of the chicks stretch its wings, a sure sign of growth. Both chicks appeared pure white from our vantage point. The food drops continued apace, and there was always an adult on the nest. On the 18th of May, the chicks still aren't ready to fledge. You can see the wing feathers are getting long enough, but they're not quite full enough yet.
And there's a
Here
kite
comes a food drop to the creek
playing
nest.
around the tree again. Another one sitting on the snag. Whoop, there we go.
You notice at this point there's no adults in the nest. The chicks have displaced the adults completely. Watch as the chick tries to figure out how to eat the lizard it was just given. The feathers of the two chicks in the creek nest are filling in. You would think birds would naturally know how to perch on a branch, but this is a skill they have to learn. They learn it by branching, which is simply moving away from the nest on a branch. This is done before they can fly, so the consequences could be great. Here's some interesting birds soaring into the nest, followed by a food drop.
Well, that was cool. Two birds flew behind the nest at the same time, and then they split and went around the nest, and one just came back.
They always scream when they leave.
They do.
To build their flying muscles, the chicks flap their wings in the nest, sometimes quite vigorously. They have to grip the nest to keep from getting airborne. At this point, they're getting close to fledging.
So, came up this morning and there was only one bird in the nest. The second bird was way out on the branch on the right hand side. And it looks like he's really lonesome and anxious to get going. So maybe he'll fledge today or tomorrow and we'll catch it.
We knew the day they would fledge was approaching. On the 29th of May, after several days of less sleep than we'd like, nothing woke us up until 8 a.m. It was nice to sleep in for a change. But you guessed it, when I took the camera out to the veranda, there was only one juvenile bird in the nest. After 2 months of videoing for over an hour a day, I managed to miss the first bird fledging.
He's flapping like mad.
Close your eyes,
I should
get
copy this
some rest.
at the end of this.
Shortly, Ruth went down the street looking for the fledgling. She did manage to find it perched in an Australian pine not far from the nest. This bird received a number of food drops in its location in that tree. Later in the evening, a fairly good storm passed through.
But I'm right here, it's gonna be okay.
Well, there was the second juvie, and I might get to record its first flight, but we only had a couple of days before we had to leave for a trip north, when we'd be gone for a week or more. Each day I would be sure to get the camera rolling good and early.
We're gonna be okay.
On the 30th of May, the bird started out where it had been the day before,
Give it a
but
whirl.
later left that spot.
Flap those wings.
When it did, Ruth went down the street and found it again. It had only moved 2 or 3 trees down the creek.
Now, I think that's the first fledge in his second tree. Ruth said it looks like he's a shadow.
On the 31st of May, which was the day of our departure, the second juvenile was still in the nest at 10 a.m. I did get nice footage of the adults flying around, seemingly tempting the last chick into taking the plunge and trying to fly. I never did get clips of either one of the juveniles making their first flight.
Zooming right by the nest. I think they're giving up. Now they're back circling over the reserve on the other side of the creek. And this bird is eating. All right, I'm done.
It was June 14th when we returned home after 15 days on the road. We saw 7 kites soaring around the general area of the 2 nests in the evening. It sure looked like they were having a good time.
One, two, three, four, five, 6. nest. They have 2 babies on the nest. You get a picture.
Yeah, I'm not zoomed in, but I got a picture of them flying.
2 babies on the nest. That's the proof.
The 15th of June, I got a video of both fledges on the nest while a food drop took place. Then all the birds left. On the evening of the 19th of June, while out walking, Ruth found what appeared to be the local perch for the night. That's the only time we've seen any kites perched for the night in our area. I went down the next night with my camera, hoping to catch it, but the kites were not there. After the first week since our return, I have only seen 1 or 2 kites at a time as they come and go from the hunting grounds. Ruth has seen the entire family soaring together a number of times. We don't think we've seen the family at the nest at the tennis courts since we returned. What will they do now? They will continue to teach the fledglings how to hunt and catch bugs on the wing. Around August 1st, they will gather in larger flocks. After they store enough food, they will head to their winter grounds in South America. The trip will take approximately 2 months. Once in Brazil, they will spend 3 or 4 months until they leave for another nesting season in North America. Now we're anxiously waiting to see if our kites will return and use the same nests, or if they'll build new nests nearby. They could just find someplace completely different. We can't wait to find out. Watch this space for news of next season's developments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.